In today's frequently asked questions, we're going to address the difference between registration black, the black swatch, using RGB black and rich black. A common mistake that happens that brings in an RGB black but does not bring an RGB black color swatch into the swatches palette is to use a photo like this sunset here, and to, instead of using a swatch out of the swatches palette to designate a black color, to instead use the eyedropper tool to select a black in the photo. You can see this black box now does not have a corresponding swatch in the swatches palette. But if I select it and double click to bring up our color picker, you can see that there's a lot of ink being placed down on the paper by having selected this RGB color space in this photo. One of the ways that you can make sure that none of your photos have RGB color is to make sure before you place them to convert them to CMYK in Photoshop. Please check out the tutorial on how to convert your images from RGB to CMYK. So instead of using the eyedropper tool and selecting a black from a photo, instead make sure you select a black from your swatches palette. In order to understand the difference between these four black options, you'll have to adjust a default setting in InDesign. You're going to go to your Edit menu, Preferences, and open the Appearance of Black menu in your Preferences window. Here in your options for black on RGB and grayscale devices, on screen you're going to change it to display all blacks accurately, and for printing and exporting, output all blacks accurately. You'll see now that when I hit OK, there will be a shift in the way these blacks appear on screen. Now that we can see on screen there is a difference between these four black swatches, we'll discuss the differences a little bit more in depth. The registration swatch is a black color available in your swatches palette. The registration swatch is a combination of 100% cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. When this is put into offset press for printing, you get a very deep color because you have 100% of all available colors being put down onto the paper. Unfortunately, putting this much ink down on paper can cause the paper to break, much like when you pour water onto a newspaper. So never use registration when designating black throughout your document. The preferred alternative to the registration swatch is using InDesign's default black swatch. The black swatch is only 100% K. You'll want to make sure that, especially for all of your text, that you make sure that the text is all using the black swatch and not the registration swatch throughout your document. RGB black is another color, much like registration, that should not be used for the black swatches throughout your document. You can tell if your black is in RGB by viewing the swatch in your swatches palette and looking at the icon on the very right-hand side. These colors are all made from cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, but this swatch here is made from red, green, and blue. Because all your documents are printed in the CMYK color space, all RGB colors have to be converted to CMYK before going to press. And you can see in this conversion that when we change this RGB to CMYK, the color values are very close to 100% of all four colors, again giving us the same problem we have with the registration swatch, where too much ink is being placed on the paper.